All right, so I just got done dropping my son off to school, and I figured I would just, share with you guys the big picture training changes that I've made the past few months. And then if we go all the way back to December, I ended up getting sick through the holidays, and I was out of the gym for 9 days. Like, I felt like shit, and I knew coming back into the gym that, I wasn't going to be able to do the same exact things prior to being sick. And past history has told me that whenever I'm sick, probably a good idea not to train, because if anything, immune system's already working hard to get that recovery. And then if you're training on top of it, it just compounds the issue. The training sessions themselves might not be all that great, so you can question yourself as far as like how productive those sessions are really being. And then at what cost? Because usually, again, if you're fighting off illness, you're trying to train through it, you're just going to be zapped after that. The recovery just isn't going to be all that great. My 20s and 30s, because I was very insecure about progress and, in a sense, maybe a little too overeager, I always pushed myself regardless if I was sick or not. And when I was sick and I pushed hard, and the next day I was like, okay, I probably shouldn't have did that, because it just made me feel even worse, and it just prolonged the recovery. And if you're prolonging recovery, then you're really not creating that much more progress. You're actually regressing. So yeah, just through the holidays, I decided just to chill out, not train. Coming back into training, I knew I couldn't do what I was doing prior, so I changed my split from an upper lower, hitting everything twice per week, to a bro split, hitting everything once per week. And I just figured, if I'm hitting, let's say, chest as the only thing in a given session versus an entire upper body workout, kind of just made sense. Like, okay, a couple chest exercises, maybe we're talking like 4 to 6 sets total per session or two, not go too crazy as far as the intensity and the loading and that type of thing. So I just, kept it pretty tame the first week back. Same approach towards all my other body parts. And it worked pretty well that first week. I was able to acclimate myself back into training. And then I was like, okay, let me run this one more week, try to improve the performance. Like, let me improve the loading, let's see if I can get more reps, maybe push the intensity as far as proximity failure a little bit more so. And I figured that was a better route versus going back to the upper lower split and hitting everything twice per week, because that would have been a substantial increase in overall workload. And the second week, performance started to go up a little bit. I noticed the recovery was really good, and I'm like, okay, let me just run this one more week. So I ran it another week, and sure enough, performance continued to go up. The loads, the reps, and the recovery was still on point. And what I also noticed by the third week was the, all the aches and pains that I've dealt with, in the past, they were starting to diminish a little bit. Like, they weren't going away completely, but I noticed I was feeling a lot better as far as the connective tissue. So I kind of just figured at that point, like, everything is clicking super well with this, and visually, I wasn't regressing at all. If anything, I was looking a bit fuller. I'm like, okay, this is probably a good approach. And I know research, the science, it'll kind of point towards, hitting body parts, 2 to 3 times per week. And of course, when you have the research that kind of points in that direction, your mind tends to want to set things up based on that. But when I look back at my personal history, I have a lot of my own data that I've collected, all through my 20s, all through my 30s. I trained with HIIT as far as low volume, high intensity, and I built a lot of muscle that way. So I have confidence knowing that low volume, high intensity, and I guess in a sense, lower frequency, hitting everything once per week, it's gotten some results for me. I've been able to build muscle that way. So, now that I'm contest prepping, I'm like, okay, it kind of makes sense. Like, if I go back to hitting things once per week, when the supply isn't there, meaning the same calories aren't there, it makes sense that this would be enough to, at the very least, maintain muscle mass. And that's exactly what has happened. But the benefit is the recovery is far more on point. The performance is far more on point. And the aches and pains, especially now that I'm older, I'm still feeling the aches and pains. It's not like they're completely gone, but significantly improved to where I'm able to push myself that much more. So going to, the bro split, hitting everything once per week, it's made a huge difference in my training, and also mentally too. When you're not dealing with as much pain, you just feel more motivated at times, you feel more confident, and you enjoy things a little bit more in the gym. And that's super important for me, is that I'm able to enjoy what I'm doing. And the other big change that I've made the last couple of weeks to further improve performance and the recovery, so the supply and demand that I quite often talk about, in podcasts and videos and on my Instagram account and all that. So I split my training into AM and PM sessions. So with the bro split, I was hitting, 1 to 2 body parts and training 4 to 5 times per week. But now splitting my training into AM, PM sessions, now I'm training 3 days per week, getting an extra rest day in there, but I'm still doing the same amount of work. So I've just redistributed the work across the week. So the recovery is that much more on point, and the performance is that much more on point. And the reason for that is, in the AM, what I'm doing is, hitting exercises that are a little bit easier in nature. So, first thing in the morning, I'm not as fueled, I'm not as awake, so the body temperature isn't as elevated. I'm not as hydrated. I do my best to try to hydrate as much as I can prior to getting the session in. But the PM session, I've had more food. I've had a couple of good meals in me by that time. My body temperature is elevated. I'm more awake, more alert, definitely well hydrated at that point. So that's where I end up doing the harder exercises. So for each session, I'm able to perform really well. And there's enough time in between those sessions, to, ensure there's enough fuel and all that. And the performance, again, is just overall a lot better. And again, because I'm getting an extra rest day in there, the recovery is on point. So things are really clicking right now with my training. Now, part of the reason why I went to the AM, PM sessions is also because of life schedule. So usually when I just have a PM session only, I have more work to get through there. So the workouts take a little bit longer. Also because I'm prepping, I got to get my steps in. So the afternoons, spending, good 2 hours, depending on the session and depending on how many steps I was getting. So, if it's getting up to 2 hours, that's time away from the family. My son comes home from school, my wife's, home from work and all that. So if I'm spending 2 hours training, it takes time away from the family. And I have more free time in the morning prior to my son going to school. There's a nice window there where, I'm kind of more idle. So it just makes sense to, split these sessions up from that perspective. So it just frees up more of my time, as far as real life, being a dad, being a husband. And I can tell that they're appreciating that a little bit more so. Now, if things change as far as the life schedule, some of the things that we're doing, then, I can always, go back to just the PM sessions. But for now, it's working out pretty well. So yeah, things are going great on the training side of things. And, I'm hoping by sharing this that you guys can, utilize the research and science. Of course, that gets us in the ballpark, right? Like it's good to have an understanding, like, yes, okay, we got to hit things 2 to 3 times per week, probably to make things optimal as possible. But someone like myself who is an outlier, having your own data, your own experiences to draw off of is super important to help guide you. So I would say I rely a little bit more on my past history, my overall experiences, because there's so much there. There's so much data there to draw off of. But I'm also always looking at the research side of things, because if I can take something from that and implement it into my training or into, just my bodybuilding in general, where I can do it in a way it's practical and I can give it a lot of effort, then I'm going to be pretty successful. So, you kind of have to be okay with exploring a little bit, because sometimes when you try something that is, whether it's, you know, through the research or it's kind of something on your own that goes against the grain, you have to be willing to explore and know that the answers are there, you know, because oftentimes we always want to know the answers ahead of time. But if we explore, you know, with an open mind and we give it a fair shake, and if you're assessing, you know, properly, then you're going to learn a lot. Whether things work or not, you're going to have, you know, that much more clarity as far as how to keep yourself moving forward in a productive way. But I'm sitting here in my driveway now. I have to get up and get to my desk and start working on athlete reports. But yeah, I'll see you guys on the next video.